Hello, everyone. Welcome to ELI, the only podcast in India where we bring a new founder on every episode to talk about their journey and their story of building a startup. And today we have with us Upasna Dash, who is the founder of Jajabor PR, which is a homegrown PR agency based out of Delhi. Hi, Upasna. Welcome to ELI.
Thank you so much for having me. Very excited to be part of this conversation.
So Upasna, to start with, would love to. I have a lot of questions around PR. PR is a big thing now. Everybody, every company, every brand, and even countries are investing in PR these days. And
Yes,
I have a lot of questions around that. But before that, I would love to hear about you a little bit about
sure,
your past, your overall journey.
sure,
Before we start talking about PR and what you do,
sure,
just tell us a bit about your background. Where were you born and brought up? Where did you
sure.
study? And how did you arrive at PR?
Great. Very interesting. Firstly, I've had a very unorthodox journey. I'm not one of those people who grew up thinking I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I was actually born in a very small town, in a very simple home in Ranchi, and my parents then moved to Pune. And actually, I was one of those kids who actually struggled a lot in school. I wasn't able to keep up. I couldn't read English. I couldn't speak Hindi. And while I was struggling, my grandfather, he was a great lawyer. He actually, to get me to start reading English, started reading out these literature books to me. And I had no idea what he was saying. But the way he was communicating, I just was excited about the concept of storytelling. So, I was a kid in the 90s, and those of us who grew up in the 90s, for
Mhm.
us, we didn't have Netflix, we didn't have a lot of avenues, limited TV. For us, for me at least, it was all about books and stories. And I think very early on in life, I realized the power of storytelling. And to simplify it, I remember being in a train station waiting for a train, but if I was reading, let's say, a Harry Potter book or a Shakespeare book, I was transported into that world. And I felt that was one of the most powerful ways to actually put ideas into the world. And that's how I knew I wanted to do something around storytelling. And obviously, as I grew older, I realized what a significant and powerful part storytelling is everywhere, whether it's academics, whether it's institution, whether it's religion, everybody's basically telling a story to the other stakeholders for to get them to come on board. So
Right.
storytelling is actually everywhere. It just surfaces in different parts. So I knew I wanted to do something around storytelling. I did my schooling in Pune. I thought I wanted to go to Wall Street like every kid back then.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, that didn't happen. I also painted for a bit. But I had an opportunity actually to go to Singapore to start my studies, thanks, to my parents. And that's when I realized that at least globally at that time, people didn't use PR and marketing as a vanity metric. They really used it to move serious business metrics. And I'm talking about, 2008, 2009, when the startup ecosystem was just coming up. It was extremely exciting. So as a college kid, I kind of fell into, building some startups, and I realized people overseas were using marketing and storytelling to move real business metrics. And that's when I knew that's what I wanted to do, where I could use storytelling to move real business metrics.
Mhm.
Obviously, back then we didn't have so much knowledge and exposure. I didn't even know a PR person, but I knew I wanted to do something around storytelling and brands. So I ended up doing a bunch of gigs in Singapore and the UK. I came back to India in 2012
Mhm.
for a year because my dad wasn't doing too well, and he bet with me saying that you're going to run back in 1 year. I was living in London at that time, so I came from London to Gurgaon in 2012, and I didn't want to sit at home. So I applied for whatever job I could find, and my first job was actually at one of the biggest and I think one of the best PR firms of that time, Dilip Charian's firm. And they
Okay.
were kind enough to give me a job even though it was an extremely menial entry level job. I think a lot of people in my position at that time, including my professors and everybody, said, "Oh my God, you were doing, marketing for these big companies in London and Singapore, and in India, you're doing such a menial job, entry level job. You shouldn't do this." But I got a great advice from a professor who said, "In India, you're always going to be, let's say, the top 1% of the 1%. Somebody who has access to education, somebody who has access to brands. For a country of a billion
Mhm.
potential users, you're one of the few handful people who is in this industry. So the probability of success in India is a lot faster than anybody else. Yes, I'd have to work hard. And I'm so glad I took his advice and I remained in India because I don't think anywhere else in the world I would have grown so quickly. So, I worked there for a couple of years. I ended up working with wonderful people, great brands. And while I did that for about 4 years, I think I wanted to do something new. And that's when I got into startups back, I think in 2015, when startups was just coming up.
Yeah.
That's it. That's how my journey began. So I did two jobs. And then in 2017, is when I started my company completely on a whim with, absolutely no experience.
Got it. And how did you crack the account? Because no, yes, I understand you had some exposure, but then to be a solopreneur, I am assuming you would have started all by on your own. As a solopreneur, how did you sort of reach out to people? How did you crack the accounts? What sort of propositions you had back in the days?
Absolutely. See, so I started the company in 2017 and I was at a very odd age. I was 27. I wasn't too young. I wasn't too old. I've had no experience of building a business. Nobody in my family. I'm the first person in my family who's ever run a business. I don't have an MBA. And I was starting out in an industry which is filled with really great big companies backed by international companies. So every person I met said, don't do it. Statistically, this cannot work because you're just one young kid who has some experience, who's looking to take on the big wigs. But I think that's the first important insight I have and advice I have for anybody starting a business. If you keep looking at statistics, it is not going to serve you well, right? Imagine Steve Jobs said, hey, statistically, nobody's ever built an iPhone, so let me not do it. So
Mm-hmm.
first thing I did is I ignored it. And I said, hey, I cannot control what other people are doing or saying. What I can control is what I can bring to the table. So I honestly just started the company with a very simple value, which holds even today, saying, can I use comms to move business metrics? Can I do it well? And can I build a great community of people who are passionate about it? That's it. And the other thing I wanted to do was, because I was this young woman from, Orissa, I didn't come from a very, great urban background. I wanted to give an opportunity for more women like me to come to the forefront. That's it. And I
Mm-hmm.
put my foot down. I had no connections. I was too young to be connected to very senior people. I didn't have an office. I worked from my parents' couch. I didn't have a single rupee of investment. And till date, I can tell you, we've been around for 9 years. We're one of the largest PR companies. There's not a single dollar of debt or investment that we have from a single person. And I think the initial days, it was just about putting your head down and saying, I need to just work hard and have results. See, one thing you learn about, especially being a woman solo entrepreneur, is you have to have incredible results. I always tell people your report card should walk into the room before you do, so that people take you seriously. So I knew that I had to work harder than anybody else to just get results on the road. No one's going to reward my effort and energy, right? People care about impact. So I just focused on that. And I started from scratch. I didn't even have money to go to conferences and events. I would literally go on Facebook. I think I emailed some 50 people. Out of that, two people responded. Out of that, one person gave me an opportunity. And that's how I got my client. And that person is still connected to me today.
Wow.
And once I got that first client, I said, literally, I told the person, if I don't perform, don't pay me. And I had to get paid because I didn't have any other sources of income. So I put everything in just getting results out. So I just blocked out all the statistics, the noise. I said, let me control what I can do. I can only control my own performance. I'll focus on that.
Got it. Got it. All right. So let's now speak about the whole world of PR.
Yes,
To start with, I would start from you mentioned Steve Jobs. I think he was one person who had sort of cracked the code for PR.
Hundred
He was a master on product launches. He understood the art of creating controversies,
Yeah,
very good storyteller. So I remember the launch of iPhone event. It's not that iPhone was a very new product. There were a lot of other
yeah,
touchscreen products out there, touchscreen phones out there, but still when iPhone came, everybody was sort of talking about it. So that's
yeah.
that's what PR is all about. So tell us about what is how would you define the term PR, especially in a today's world?
Right.
What role does it play for anybody, be it a brand or a person, and
Sure.
how is it sort of changing?
Actually, Apple is one of my favorite brands. We've done a lot of work studying it. And one thing about Apple that they've cracked is, and that's actually the secret sauce of great PR, they never sold a product or a service. They sold a lifestyle, or they sold emotion, right? And I think that's kind of fundamental to building great PR. And to give you an example, right, a lot of people come to me and say, what's the difference between PR and social media? Why should I spend on PR? Why can't I just do influencer marketing? Very simply, I tell people, imagine There's a new iPhone that's being launched, and you open the paper. On the left hand side, you see a ad for iPhone. It'll give you all the information: what's the MI, what's the specs, what's everything. And on the right side, you're going to see a review of somebody who's used an iPhone. Right now, when you look at the ad, you will use that ad for awareness, right? Saying, okay, I have this information, but you have to actually make the decision. You want somebody trustworthy to tell you whether it's worth it or not. So,
Mm.
what's on the right is PR. And PR is a very old thing, right? In fact, I'm writing a very interesting paper where we've gone down to the origins of PR. I think the origins of PR happened in the Egyptian civilization when,
Okay.
people were trying to raise money to actually build, like, the pyramids and things like that. They had to actually coax people to part with money to build it. That was original PR,
Wow.
right? You couldn't sell and advertise it. You had to actually get people to trust you to part with that money to build something that wasn't functional at that point. So I think, when it comes to PR, it's actually embedded in basic human behavior, right? As a human being, when you're about to make a decision, you will want awareness, and then you will want some trust and credibility to finally convert and make that transaction. So PR is all about building that trust and credibility. And I think in today's day and age, most people get confused and they're asking the wrong questions, saying whether we should do advertising, social media, or PR. That's the wrong question, because each of these things solve a different purpose. So, for example, an advertising campaign will solve for awareness and mass scale awareness. Social media may solve for immediate sort of traction and reaching people, but PR will still solve for trust and credibility,
Mm-hmm.
right? So in today's day and age, I think all three are equally important. I think the only difference is the concept of PR has changed because the way we consume information has changed, right? Not many people are, unfortunately picking up a print newspaper and reading it in the morning. They're possibly going to Instagram, they're looking at their LinkedIn feed. So PR has just changed the way it reaches people. But anything that derives trust, credibility, and is as organic in nature as possible, that's PR. And I think the right way to look at it is look at it like a relay race. At some point, you need all three. You can't do away with one. So, how do you use them depending on what your goal is how communication really works.
Got it. And is there a sort of art behind PR? Like some everybody is doing content marketing, social media, and everything, but only some work, whereas the others do not work. And everybody is using their own creativity. There are
Yes.
a lot of hacks, but sometimes there are certain category of people who have understood the psyche behind good PR. Uh,
Yes.
what goes, what doesn't go. Uh,
Yeah.
what have you understood about the art of PR? What flies, what doesn't fly? Uh, yeah, tell us about it.
So the most interesting thing about PR is, and I've been doing this for 15 years, is that there is no scientific set formula, right? There are certain insights that you will get, but PR basically is the most dynamic thing because it changes with human behavior and human emotion, right? And like you rightly said, why is it that some people crack it? Why is it that some people don't crack it? I can tell you top two or three things that we've seen common in our successful PR campaigns, right? I think number one is authenticity, especially today, right? I think brands and people need to realize that their customers are people like you and me. We are intelligent people, right? We can see through somebody and something being fake. So authenticity is extremely important. Number two is, and where this is where most people get it wrong. Just because it has worked for someone does not mean you can copy paste it and make it work for you, right? It actually, and we've worked very hard to build a science around it, but it actually, for example, depends on, hey, if I'm a brand, I have to first understand what is my business goal. Maybe my business goal is to actually raise funds, or it is to launch a new product, or it is to hire people. Each of these are different business goals. Each of them have different audiences, and each of these audiences sit on a separate platform, right? For example, let's say, you represent a very big, credit card company that's looking to hire engineers or AI engineers to build tech products. That person is not sitting on Instagram. That person is on LinkedIn, or that person is on a closed group. So you need to do certain kind of PR to reach that person, right? But the audience or the customer of this credit card could be a young 23-year-old millennial. That person is not sitting on a print publication, is sitting, let's say, in a community, or is very active on Instagram. So
Mhm.
it has to be tailor made to who your audience and your business goal is. So I think that's number two. And number three is actually a little bit interesting because I keep telling people that now I think people have become too data driven, right? Everything is, array, the algo says this, so we should do this. So you're just repeating the same thing again and again. One of the things that I loved about Steve Jobs is that he used to, I think, believe that, hey, my job is to not give people what they want. My job is to give people what they don't even know they want. That's
Yeah.
where innovation happens. So I think the biggest mistake people are making it, they feel like if certain brands have done it, our job is to take that data and then just copy paste it and repeat it. That doesn't work. There has to be some bit of innovation, creativity, and risk that you take, and that's how new user behavior and these new brands are born. So it's, I think, being authentic, ensuring that you're speaking at the right platform, you're speaking to the right people, and number three, depending on where you are in your cycle, you have to take some risk and be innovative. You cannot always just think this is the data, so I will only do this.
Mm, got it. One recent examples of good PR has been this hype around this movie called Saiyaara. I think
Yeah,
seeing a lot of stories around it, but I think it has beautifully cracked the code of PR, how to
yeah,
go viral in social media. But I think there are some brains behind it who are designing, orchestrating these PR
100%.
campaigns. What are your thoughts around that? Like everything is sort of, now PR driven. Who does good PR has a
Yeah,
maximum chance to win
yeah.
against anybody else.
Yeah, no, so a great example, right? And exactly the three elements that I said, I can tell you that it fits perfectly well, right? The people behind Sayara were very clear about who their audience was. They were looking at a certain section of people, I believe, between, let's say, 18 to 27. They were not looking at
Yeah,
people.
yeah,
Right?
yes.
So they first looked at that audience, and then they looked at what does this audience react to? What do they want? Where do they sit? They sit on Instagram. They react to reels, right? So if you look at the content that was pushed out, it was young people sitting and crying in theaters and talking about it, right? They didn't go after everybody. They went after a certain niche of people. And then once they cracked that, they did something innovative. Everybody before them was doing the same PR marketing. They would take their actors, overexpose them, put
Hmm.
them in front of 50 people. So people are bored. So they said, let's do something completely opposite that has not been done before. They took a risk. And that risk and innovation paid off, right? So I think that's, I think, the right way to do it. And I do believe PR and brand plays a very big role, but at the end of it, it also has to come down to how good the product or the experience is, right? For example, with you and I, let's say somebody does brilliant PR and sells you a great phone, right? But when you start using it and your day-to-day experience is not good, you're not going to recommend it to anybody and you're not going to go back to it. So
Yes.
I also see a lot of people thinking, okay, all we have to do is activate great brand and PR and we're done. No, that's just half the battle won. That will just get somebody to get to buy the product. But if you don't invest in actually building the great product or service, you're not going to have a repeat customer, and then bad word of mouth takes over. And that's the worst thing that can happen to you. No amount of PR can sort of, recover from authentic bad word of mouth. So it's
Mhm.
a 50-50 thing.
Got it. So, all right, you spoke about negative PR, but I have seen some people who have gathered a lot of follower base just because of negative PR. It works
Yeah.
for them. A lot of yes, some. So I am talking about. I wouldn't take examples, but there are some apps, some categories where because of negative PR, you spread the word, and a lot of people sort of get to know about this particular app. Or I'll take example of this company called IITIMShadi.com, and they sort of leverage this negative PR thing. They hired journalists to write negative things about their company, and that's how they lot of hype happened, and the right
Yeah.
kind of people sort of signed up on their platform because they got to know that there is a platform like that. So
Yeah.
what would be your thought on that?
So, there's a very famous saying in our industry, you would have heard that all PR is good PR. I don't think so. Because, see, there's a difference between good PR and great awareness, right? So, you can get great awareness by being controversial, by being negative, and things like that. But it's not very long term and sustainable, right? Ultimately, the products that are in your home today, right, are products that have built trust with you over a long period of time. Otherwise, you can replace your favorite noodles, your favorite shoe brand, your favorite tech brand by the next brand that comes in and sells it to you at a better price, right? But why do you and I and hundreds of consumers continue to invest in products long term? Because we have some connect with that brand. That brand has been authentic to you, honest to you, right? And I'll take two steps back, right? See, PR is actually built on the intersection of data, human behavior, and psychology in a way, right? And primarily speaking, there are only two emotions, love and fear, right? So, for example, you can sell insurance by making people scared. No, 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 you must get insurance. What will happen to your family? But if you remember the most iconic insurance ads, though that insurance ad says, hey, let's take care of insurance, Saki, ab sar utha ke jiyo. Why do we remember that?
Hmm.
Many ad campaigns have come before and after that, but we remembered that because it built a long term, honest, positive conversation. So, negative PR, controversy, it can give you a short bump, right? And you can get a lot of awareness. People will talk about you for a couple of days. But if you're building something long term, especially from a product or brand point of view, it cannot sustain you beyond a point, right? Then it has to come down to authentic, user experience, authentic relationship with the brand. It's a short term thing, not something long term.
Got it. Uh, Taking cues from your insurance example, don't you think fear sells better than just doing plain feature to benefit PR?
So it's my personal point of view, and after seeing a bunch of brands, I think fear sells definitely, and there is a way to do it. But I feel long term, right? I would not say do plain vanilla. Here's my product and service. I feel like building a brand out of goodness and purpose always wins in the long term. And this is not just me speaking, right? There are multiple data reports that will say, especially after COVID, people are more akin to buying brands with a larger purpose than brands that don't have. Even if I'm buying a shoe or a toothbrush, if the brand is doing something nice, I'm more likely to bring it into my life. So I feel that in the long term, again, I feel like brands that, because I think of myself as a customer. Yes, I may, buy a product or an experience once or twice out of fear, right? So, for example, we were doing a very interesting case study for a, big international brand that was doing hair care, right? So they said, hey, listen, why don't we just tell people if you don't use our products, you will gray faster, you will become bald, all of that. When we did that case study, we realized that yes, that's right. But, every time they picked up the product, they felt bad about themselves. So they avoided using that product. Whereas on the other hand, when we started to say, hey, listen, can we talk about, hey, you feel good about yourself, things will get, easier for you to maintain yourself in your hair, etc. People were more respondent to that. So I'm not disagreeing that fear sells and fear mongering or like being controversial will get you quick wins, but it completely depends on the kind of brand that you're trying to build. A brand is actually an extension of your personal belief as a leader as well. So if you believe that you want to bring a long-term authentic brand, it will work. And I think if you look at the most iconic brands in the world, and Apple will never tell you that, listen, if you don't buy a phone, something bad will happen to you. No, they just tell you about the goodness of having that product in your life long term. So you're willing to spend 2x the amount to bring that into your life. So I think data also proves that in the long term, the most iconic brands are built out of a place of purpose
Hmm.
and making the customer feel good about themselves.
Got it. Uh, we spoke about how PR is used in the domain of brands, but I think PR goes beyond brands as well. Every celebrity these days is hiring PR agency, and they are a good example of how PR can be used. Even countries are doing PR these days. If you remember, I think a few months back, India, Pakistan sort of went into a war-like situation, and then eventually the war happened on the PR front, who is doing better PR for their country. And there were people on the top who were driving the narrative. These people are not formal PR people, but yeah, they were doing the largest PR campaigns of the world, building narratives around the countries, and even other countries are doing that by hosting certain events, building this concept of power and so on. So what would be your thought on that? How PR is extending beyond just brand level PR?
Yeah. No, I think it's a very important point, and I think it's also very interesting. In a way, it's great, but it should be done responsibly. But I think one of the best things that has happened is so many people have come online and are connected, right? And across the spectrum, right? Not just in urban India, across tier two, tier three city, thanks for great internet awareness. We're sitting here, we know exactly what's happening in other countries. So I think connectivity has played a very big role in it. It's definitely being used. Again, the right people will know how to use it responsibly. But I think it gives you two very important insights. Number one, like I said, people are interested because people are able to access that information very easily, right? But you have to use that platform responsibly, right? It can also be used for nefarious purposes, which it shouldn't be done. So I think that's one insight. The second insight is that I think it's helping solve the bridge, right? I think, which is a great thing, where we're finding out so many wonderful things about other countries. So many people across the world are actually finding out about different facets of India, right? Which I think is phenomenal. Like, we're able to sort of talk about what India is made up of, from our culture to our sports to, the kind of things that we're doing. So I think that's fantastic. Again, it should just be used for the right purpose at the right time. I think it's only going to get more and more important because more and more people are going to come online, and the user behavior is that everybody wants to be connected all the time. So connection is one thing. The second thing is also people expressing themselves online, right? Today, power is not just with people in positions, right? Power is anybody who has a community has the power to sort of speak and, amass content. So there are many things happening. I think we're too early in the game to figure out what's the right or wrong way to do this, but we have to kind of be responsible. But this is only going to scale. And it's going to scale as fast as people come online in different parts of the world. So I think it's an interesting thing. People are doing some really great things with it as well. And I think we should look at that.
Got it. All right. So, coming to the final part of our podcast, a lot of our listeners are founder themselves. They have very limited budget to spend on PR. So, what they end up doing is sometimes they go into some podcasts, some forums, but they're always, worrying about how do I create some
Yeah.
good words in the market? How do I
Yeah.
go viral and so on? What would be your sort of advice to them? Like, what are some of the first one or two PR related actions they should
Sure.
take to, get a good return on their small investments?
Absolutely. I work very closely with a lot of founders across the board from across levels, and I can tell you a couple of things. Number one is, it's never too early to start PR. I think the earlier the better. Just the scale is completely in your hands, depending on how much time and resources that you have, right? Effective PR does not mean going viral. Effective PR is something that moves some actual goal for you. I think a lot of people get caught up in the fact that, oh my God, so many great people know me. What are you doing with that, right? Okay, you've built awareness. What does that awareness lead to? Because after a point you're going to ask, okay, I have 200,000, 500,000 followers. What is the purpose of that? Am I monetizing it? Am I giving them more information? What is happening? So I think people need to step away, and the metric cannot just be people know me. What are we doing after people know me is the most important thing. Second is, I always tell early stage founders, and in fact, my most successful PR mandates and campaigns with some of the largest companies in the world, whether it's Fortune 500 companies or unicorns, has been when the founder, the leadership actually keeps brand and PR with themselves. PR is not something that you can outsource. We are an agency, right? So we tell people that yes, we can do the distribution and all of that. We can embed ourselves, but PR is really an extension of your vision, mission, and values as a team or as a founder. So you need to take time and keep it for yourself so that authenticity is done. That's when I said that authenticity is very important. You need to constantly be connected to it. Third is, be very clear about who your audience is, right? And like I said, great PR can also be, even if 100 people in the ecosystem truly love and advocate for your brand, that means you've arrived. I think the most beautiful metric in PR that we constantly chase is how many people on their own positively are talking or advocating for a brand. If somebody is advocating for your brand on their own without being paid or provoked, that means you've done a great job. And you have to do a lot of work to get to that point. So even if 50 people, 25 people are advocating for your brand, that means you're in the right direction. And again, like I said, don't copy people because it's being buzzworthy. Every brand, every story, I tell people, like, everybody has a unique story. It's like a fingerprint, right? Similarly, every brand has a unique position, so you have to really customize to where your audience is, and
Mhm.
spend so much more time with your audience as time progresses, right? Some of the best founders that I've met, they spend more and more time with their end customer as the business scales. You don't disconnect from it because you have to truly understand the customer from beginning to the end. I also tell people this. For example, let's say you sell an, or you're a earphone company.
Mm-hmm.
Your customer doesn't wake up in the morning and says, today I will wear earphones and that's all I'm going to do today. No, the customer wakes up, the customer brushes the teeth, go gets coffee, goes to work, then puts on the earphone, then eats lunch. So he's doing many, many things in the day. Understand the customer in its entirety. Nobody gets up and says, I want to be a earphone customer.
Hmm.
Right. So you have to really deeply spend time in understanding the customer. Personally, even today, whenever a mandate comes to us, I spend the maximum time trying to understand the business goal and the customer. I try to understand the user behavior. I try to understand how much are they spending, how long do they take to convert. So when you understand all of that is when you will understand how to communicate with them. And yeah, like I said, PR, the metric is not how many people know you. It's how many people authentically advocate for what you're doing or what your company is doing. If you've cracked even 50 people doing that, you're doing the right thing.
Got it. How critical would you say is a founder's personal brand and their storytelling ability to the company's overall success?
I would say it's actually pretty important in different degrees depending on where the business is. For example, we work with a lot of companies in Silicon Valley where 90% of the people don't even know what the face of the founder looks like. And that's fine too. But then the same people are always connected to the ecosystem internally or talking to employees. So I think the leader and the founder being present is very important, but it can happen in different degrees. Again, I don't think there's a set module saying that if you're a founder, you have to be in 50 podcasts. No, if it is not serving your business, don't be in 50 podcasts. Instead, do two town halls instead, right? So it depends on businesses to business. What I can tell you, what's interesting, especially in the India ecosystem, is again, people want to trust the brand. So sometimes the trust is built on people, sometimes the trust is built on just the brand being offline, sometimes the trust is built on them seeing other customers. So it depends. I think a lot of people are now doing founder PR in a big way, which is great. It actually makes our ecosystem, a lot more vibrant, which is fantastic. But a lot of them quickly question themselves, okay, I'm doing this, like I said, I'm getting all the followers and the engagement, but how is this impacting my business? If that's not clear, it's redundant. So I don't think it's critical because everybody's doing it. I feel like, for example, if you're a B2B customer, right, and you only have, let's say, a limited pool of very high value customers, you'd rather go and meet them personally and host closed door meetings. You don't need to be on LinkedIn giving GAN every second day. It completely depends on where your customer is. But, maybe you are in a business where customers need to see you and it works for them. So it depends on where your customer is and whether that actually impacts the transaction in your brand. But building trust and credibility, 100% important. Whether you do it through your founder or you do it through something else, you got to have trust and credibility.
Understood. My last question before we end. How do you measure PR? How do you measure the ROI of perception? Because a lot of this is around building the perception of your
Yeah.
customer, of your investor, of your employees, and so on. And many times, business leaders are used to clear metrics like customer acquisition cost or conversion rate. How do
Yeah.
you demonstrate the value of PR?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. I've dedicated most of my career in ensuring I'm able to answer that question. It's a very important question, right? Because when you're starting to invest, you'll be like, if I'm investing this, what is the ROI of it, right? And PR is, in most cases, very intangible, right? You have this buzz, you have this perception. So I think the right way to do this, at least the way we do this, is you have to track some business goal being moved through that PR, either in the short term or the long term, but you have to have that goal from the beginning, right? For example, by doing this, am I getting more leads of people wanting to buy my product? Am I getting, higher rate of conversion? Am I being sort of considered for better contracts? So you have to kind of tie it to some business objective, and you have to give it a very clear timeline, right, and a realistic timeline. So the funny thing about PR is, I tell my clients, tomorrow, even if you cover on the if you come on the cover of Time magazine, that does not mean that next day suddenly everybody will come and buy your product. No, maybe they've seen it and 3 months later when they're buying the product, they'll remember it and they'll buy it. So it's very tough, unlike for social media and advertising, where you put in a certain budget in 48 hours or 1 week, you will see the exact sort of ROI. That's very difficult to do in PR, right? Because trust and credibility is a very intangible thing, which is why you have to tie it to some business goal. It's
Mhm.
slightly more long term, right? Very rarely will PR give you immediate 24-hour results. It happens when there are big announcements and stuff, but it's slightly more long term. But the good news is that once it's built over a long period of time, it is very hard to displace it. Right, when people emotionally feel something about a brand, they feel it. Right, most of us growing up in this country feel a certain way about Maggie. It doesn't mean that we don't have other options for instant noodles, but you feel a certain way about Maggie because of years and years of PR that has been put into us being emotionally connected to the brand. So
Right.
it's a longer game. So it if it is something that you are willing to invest in, then start it. The biggest mistake I would say people make is they start it, they stop it, and then they say, oh, why do we have to start from scratch? No. Either you don't do PR until you're ready to commit to it for a slightly longer period of time because it's a longer game.
And I'm just thinking out loud, isn't it the wrong way to look at PR from an ROI point of view? Because I think, how do you measure trust? Because at the end of the day, it is building the trust and emotion and the perception of the people. There is no right way to measure that. Isn't it the wrong way to look at the ROI and everything? Because yeah, a lot of business functions are there where you don't sort of count the ROI. How do you create count ROI of let's say customer support function? There is no ROI figure because it's a must have thing. It's not a profit center, rather it's a cost center. You have
Yeah.
to have it. So PR, isn't it something like that?
So, I wish that was true. It would make all our lives very easy. But see, the thing is that, again, it depends on the industry that you're. For startups, it's extremely critical, right? Because if a startup is spending even $1 or 20 minutes of their time on something, that ROI has to be given, right? Obviously, when the companies become really big, then PR can be like a good to have function. So what you're saying works in very large setups because PR plays a certain role. They've seen it happen over the period. But for startups, that doesn't work. And that's what has challenged us, as a company, as a founder. I have spent my career trying to answer this question for startup founders. So I would not say it's wrong. It's very challenging. It's very difficult, but it should be done because if you're not able to do that, then people fall off and they say, "Acha, what's the point of PR? Right?
Hmm.
What's the point of credibility?" And I always tell people there's a lot of people come to me. 90% of people came when there's a crisis. Oh my God, there's a crisis, and how do we solve it? And that's actually the most magical benefit of PR.
Right.
If you have a company, specifically a customer facing company, think of PR as a rainy day fund. You have to start building that trust over a period of time. It's like insurance. You never know when you'll need it, but when you need it, only PR comes. Then you cannot use a social media campaign to make sure your customers are okay. Right, you have to invest in PR. If you've seen the latest internet campaign with the Coldplay concert and the astronomer CEO, the team hired Gwyneth Paltrow to come in and make that statement. They had to do it because there was a crisis, right? That company hadn't need to do it before. So I feel like people who have invested in PR, especially early stage companies, I tell them, even if it is little, do a little, have one authentic platform where you're talking to customers because the day a crisis happens, you will need that. Then you cannot use an advertising campaign to say that you're okay.
Hmm.
So it's important. So it is something that you'll have to build over time. And in startups, you have to give them some kind of tangible metric, right? We have, after years of working, figured out how to measure trust, figured out how to measure credibility, figured out how to measure even perception and affinity to a brand. It's been hard, but we've done it. And once you start with that conversation, I think people get more invested in it.
All right. Well, on this note, we'll close the conversation. Thanks for joining us, Upasna. Pleasure having you on our platform, and our best wishes for Jajabor.
Thank you so much. It was such a wonderful conversation. And thank you so much for having me do this. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Upasna.